Serbian President Alexander Vucic now joins me from Belgrade for an exclusive interview. Mr. President, welcome to the programme. Let us get a status report right now. As I said, the US reports an unprecedented staging of advanced Serbian artillery, tanks and mechanized infantry units. You've been in dialogue with members of the US administration. Have you withdrawn them, as your army chief says?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, and wanted to say that we always appreciated all the reports that were coming from NSC, White House, and all the other institutions that are coming from the United States. But the real issue is that these reports were not fully accurate. Let me say this. We signed in 2001 an arrangement with NATO, which means that that's about our access to ground safety zone. And we agreed upon the fact that we can use that freely with no restrictions, ground safety zone, and of course, Serbia's territory itself, with no restrictions towards equipment, towards weaponry. But you need to know something. A year ago, we used to have 14,000 people at the administrative line with Kosovo. A few days ago, we used to have less than 8.4 thousand. Today, we have it 4.4 thousand, which is a regular number of people. And we always hear and we always listened when our partners were asking us to de-escalate the situation, and we did it this time, although there were no reasons for a big worry, because we didn't need any kind of wars, any kind of clashes with NATO. To the contrary, we want to see, and I'm reiterating this, bigger presence of KFOR in entire Kosovo, particularly in the north. That would be, we hope, one of the ways to support Serbian people's safety and security, particularly in northern Kosovo.
All right, well, I'm sure people will be very happy to hear you say that. On the other hand, though, on Friday, Milan Radojic, vice president of the Serb List Party, admitted to taking part in the September 24th shootout, which is what we're talking about and which is what has brought this crisis. Now, he, just hours after that, you apparently moved thousands of troops to the border with Kosovo. Why did you move troops to the border? And was it, as some have suggested, to distract from the fact that this Serbian politician had admitted to taking part in this attack with a huge armed cache?
No, not at all. It was not the case. Our army people, they do follow the situation in the field, and they move our forces in a way that they believe it can be, the most useful, and they have their own operations and everything else. But I did not sign even a high alert for our army people, and you need to know this. And the number of people was not excessing, not even a 60% of what we used to have in the borders.
So then let me ask you this follow-up then.
Administrative line, the borders. But I need to say, let me say this. It was not a proof of anything, because Serbia was the last country, the last entity, whatever you call it, that needed those incidents in Kosovo because of the dynamism of an entire negotiating process. Everybody was seeing that Serbia was a constructive partner during the dialogue process, that Serbia was doing a lot of concessions. The other side didn't do anything. The other side was doing this sort of gradual ethnic cleansing. There are 10% less Serbs living in North Kosovo than 2 years ago, just after Albin Kurti came to power. It was 420 attacks against Serbian civilians, against Serbian people in Kosovo.
All right,
since
let's
he
take
came
some
to
of these.
power.
Let's take some of these, because we
59
can't just go
attacks
through
against
numbers, sir.
Sacred object.
Yeah, we can't just go through numbers. And the United States and EU...
I believe that numbers are important.
Okay, does not believe that the Kosovars have conducted ethnic cleansing. But here's what I want to ask you. The EU has said forces, i.e. your forces, need to stand down. We also expect, and this is important, no impunity for the perpetrators. They need to face justice. We need to go back to a situation where the parties are talking and returning to the EU-facilitated dialogue. Now, you are saying all the right things right now, that you've pulled back these troops and they, you know, they shouldn't be involved in this kind of thing. So will Milan Radojic, who admitted doing this and taking part in it, will he face accountability? What are you going to do with him?
Thank you once again for giving me an opportunity to explain this, but...
No, it's just a really simple question. Will he be held accountable as the EU is demanding?
Very simple response to you. Of course, Serbia will hold accountable all the people that committed criminal deeds and that we might find on our territory. And he is available and he is on our territory, and prosecutors will do their job. That is something I believe it's very important. But there is something else. I was speaking about the roots of the problems, and you don't want to hear it. And it's okay for me. The problem is that Serbs wanted to protect themselves. And I'm not going to defend a killing of Albanian police guy, and I didn't do it, I condemned it. But I'm saying that Serbs were arresting with no charges, home searches, evictions, expropriations, everything that was not in accordance with the Brussels Agreement, with the international public law. Association of Serb municipalities, it was not formed so far since 2013. 10 years ago we signed that. And Albanian regimes in Pristina didn't want to provide it into deeds. And people wanted to protect themselves. And you cannot have different approaches in 1998, 1999, and 2023.
You sort of can, sir, because
the dialogue is the only possible solution.
Correct. This Wild West, you would probably agree, because you've just said it, which has been existing for many years now to the detriment of everybody in that region, would probably end if you were back into the dialogue. So let me ask you this then. The recent set of conversations between you and your Kosovar counterparts was considered a success by the EU because both of you accepted the agreement that was aimed at normalizing relations. But you left the negotiations without signing the document, Mr. President. And then, when you got back home on Serbian television, you said that you had been unable to sign because, quote, I have excruciating pain in my right hand, and that pain is expected to continue for 4 years. So, do you still have a pain in your hand? Or do you believe that you will get back to what the EU is calling for, which is back to those normalization talks?
Once again, many thanks. I appreciate your objectiveness and not biased approach at all. And wanted to say that perhaps you didn't follow what the EU was saying after our last meeting. Serbia was fully constructive, and even Josep Borrell and Miroslav Lajčák, as EU envoys, were saying publicly that Serbia was fully constructive, that Serbia accepted everything, that Albanian representative...
But sir, you didn't sign it. You didn't sign it.
Association of Serb municipalities. No, you're speaking about the previous arrangements. I was doing whatever I have said before that to our friends from the United States, from the European Union, because I have my constitution, Serbian constitution, which I have to follow, which I have to respect. And I was not hiding anything in their presence. I was saying everything face to face, eye to eye to them, and they believed me. And I was always saying the truth. And after that, we wanted to implement everything that we agreed upon. but Pristina didn't want to do it. And you had a very clear signal from European Union, from all our friends, from all the envoys, from all the interlocutors, all the mediators, that it was their fault. And all of a sudden we have all these incidents like we need to blame Serbia for everything. And then if you see the result of 2 years of Kurti's regime, it's that there are 3 Serbs, 1 Albanian killed, 10 Serbs wounded, altogether including 11-year-old kids which were just carrying a cross before the Christmas Eve.
Mr. President, you say
1,000 people fled Kosovo.
We will put the questions that are necessary to the Kosovar leaders who we talk to later this week, but you say your highest priority is getting Serbia into the EU. And you know that the EU will not access either of you, neither Kosovo nor Serbia, if you don't go back to normalization. So my question to you is, it's a question about actually what the actual agreement looks like. And I want to know whether for you it's acceptable, and if not, why. So it seems that if you were to agree to the normalization, you don't actually have to recognize Kosovo's independence, but you do have to recognize official documents like passports, diplomas, license plates, and you do have to not block Kosovo's membership to any international organization. In return, Kosovo has to agree to, certain Serb alliances up in that area and Serb rights up in that area. Are you prepared to do this bit that the EU says?
Yeah, we were very ready, and we are always very ready to negotiate. And we were very constructive, and we will remain so. But you need to understand, there is something that everybody in the European Union already realized. Pristina is not ready to create association of Serb municipalities. That is the biggest obstacle. And they want to continue with gradual ethnic cleansing of Serbs, particularly in northern Kosovo. But anyway, I'm always available, always at disposal to our interlocutors, to our European friends, American friends, all the others. And we'll be ready to discuss all the issues. And as I said at our last meeting, form the Association of Serb Municipalities will deliver on everything that we have promised. And I believe that the peace is the best interest of Serbia, the best interest of an entire region, because we can brag ourselves of having 63% of overall foreign direct investments that are coming to the Western Balkans. Speaking about Serbia, that's what we need. We have many things to lose. Why we would play this kind of games?
Well, that's a good question, Mr. President. Nobody understands it, and maybe it's politics.
That's why we are very much dedicated to carry on negotiating.
It's a good question, but we watch destabilization across the border in Bosnia, and we watch, an interesting political game being played. You say one thing internally and another thing to interlocutors. So I want to ask you this, because you also have some very powerful and famous celebrities.
No, it's not true at all.
Okay.
As you have just said.
Okay, fine. I'll take that on board. At Roland Garros in May.
I was always very responsible and very serious regarding Bosnia and Herzegovina, always supporting territorial integrity of Bosnia and Dayton Peace Accord.
So you don't support Milorad Dodik and his destabilization?
People of 3 nations in Bosnia.
Okay, good. Well, then they'll be pleased to hear that now.
I do support. Don't put your words into my mouth. I'm just saying that I do support Dayton Peace Accord and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I have never, ever put that into question. Okay.
Can I ask you how it helps the situation when a really famous and world-renowned Serb, like your athlete Novak Djokovic, writes on a camera lens, "Kosovo is the heart of Serbia, stop the violence"? Do you approve of that? This was in the tennis championships in May in France. Do you approve of that kind of rhetoric, and does it help or hurt the situation?
I believe that Novak Djokovic was saying something from the bottom of his heart. 99% of people Serbian believe in that. But I can tell you one thing, that we politicians need to be pragmatic, rational, which means that we need to find solutions through negotiating process, through constructive approach, that we need to see how we're going to tackle all the problems for the future, because we need to see no Albanians and no Serbs suffering anymore, and to see how we can overcome all these difficulties and how we can create a better future with open borders, administrative lines, whatever you call it, just to make it bigger economic cooperation and to get closer to our people. That is the real question.
President Alexander Vucic, thank you very much for joining me from Belgrade tonight.